This is a very exciting time as we have two of our presenters today. Let me go ahead and introduce those two presenters. We do have a lovely picture here. We have Catherine Dowdy. She is from Austin Community College, the Executive Director of Adult Education. And what I'd like to consider, she went from teacher to superhero because she was a hero before, where she started as an adult ed instructor and then moved up her way as counselor and then to executive director. She has been working in 6 years in this current function, and she is also part of the SIP cohort, which is focusing on the skilled immigrant. And so we're going to give you more about that later, but she does have her master's in educational psychology, and she's joined today by Michelle Marler. Michelle is also from Austin Community College. She's the Career Pathway Supervisor. Her master's is in rehabilitation counseling, and she's served in her current role since 2016. She also has a bachelor's in communication disorders with an emphasis in deaf education. Prior to her current position, she spent 6 years in adult education counselor for ACC, and she has more than 20 years of experience in the fields of education, counseling, and vocational rehab. So a wealth of experience that we have before us today between Kathy and Michelle. So thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. And I do want to say that Kathy and Michelle are both participating in the Serving Internationally Trained Immigrant Project, otherwise known as SIP. We will be giving more information in the Fall Institute as well as TALI, so stay tuned for that information. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present to you Michelle and Kathy.
So I'm here today to talk about the Internationally Trained Professionals program that we offer through Austin Community College. The Internationally Trained Professionals program is part of our Career Pathways program. It is one of our 4 instructional departments in the Adult Education Division at Austin Community College. The other 3 are HSC or GD, ESL, and College Prep. College Prep helps students prepare for college and become TSI complete without their financial aid. Our ITP program, Internationally Trained Professionals, helps students find opportunities utilizing their degrees from their countries and to prevent brain waste. This is a new term that we recently learned from the SIP project. Brain waste is all definition is used when ITP students are underemployed, such as a doctor that is employed as a custodian in a school. Our ITP program, how we recruit is by mostly from our ESL students. We currently have over 2,000 students per year. Recruitment also comes from presentations that we do, classroom presentations, community events, and advertisement. We advertise for ELL and HSC with websites, social media, Spanish radio, and with culturally relevant local events that happen throughout Austin. We are also always scanning our data to proactively recruit students who might not come forward after a presentation. An example of this, we had a level 4 ESL class, and we discovered the majority of students were ITP. So we integrated and expanded the curriculum of that class. We also recruit from our consortium members. Eligibility. To determine eligibility with our students, they need to have a best oral score of 485 or higher and a best literacy score of 68 or higher. This score equates to approximately our level 3 class placement. However, exceptions are made, so we have taken lower level students in the past. Students may need to take the CASAS if the best oral and literacy scores exceed our top out level. A professional certification, associate's degree, or university diploma from another country is also required.
Do you tailor the 8-week course to a group, or is it basically the same material for everyone?
We do use the same material for each class. However, it's kind of a foundation material. Our teachers will then adjust as needed. So if they have a class that's full of engineers, obviously the resume writing and everything's going to be geared towards the engineer profession. If we have a class that's full of medical or individuals with medical degrees, then yes, we're going to adjust for that need. So it just depends on who we have in the class, but we do have a set curriculum that the teachers follow.
Okay, well, it's good to hear that there is customization even though you do have a set curriculum. So we do have another question. We were told students did not have to show documentation of a certification or degree from their home country. Is this a local requirement?
So our students, we do ask that they have a degree. We don't ask that they show the degree. So they don't have to have proof. A lot of them do come with proof, but since we translate their diplomas from other countries, in that case, they're going to have to actually have the papers here. But if a student comes and say they're from a war-torn country and they don't have the documents, then we would not, they can join the class. We wouldn't require it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Those are the questions that we have for now. Thank you.
Great. So ITP program enrollment. Our students are directly enrolled into our ITP classes through our adult education staff. Group registrations for ITP classes are held every 8 weeks. This is in conjunction with our IET Career Pathway registrations. Each student is advised at the ESL and Career Pathway registrations. This helps us determine if they have a diploma from another country, their goals, and it also helps us determine their interests because we don't want our students to be placed in the wrong IET program if they need more training because we only like for them to go into one training and not multiple trainings.
Who advises the students during registration, as you mentioned earlier, and what does that advising consist of?
So a couple of my coordinators, I have several great coordinators, but a couple of them and a couple of the teachers too for ITP. We do sit and work with the students when they come in. We ask them questions like what their goals are, what their obstacles are, what they're looking at, and this helps us kind of get a general idea of where they're going. Then after that's over, then once they're in the classroom, then the coordinators like Letty will come in and work with the students individually and help work with a plan to help them meet those goals.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So our ITP program model, this is what our class actually looks like. Classes are offered every 8 weeks. Twice a week, 4 hours per class meeting. There are 2 teachers assigned to one class. For example, we have one teacher that teaches on Fridays and covers workforce topics such as like interviewing, resume writing, networking, and job search. And then we have a teacher that teaches on Saturday, and that teacher would cover high-level English used in the workplace. Part of the class does include, like I mentioned earlier, that intensive advising. This includes further interviews regarding student career goals, what it might take to become certified in their profession in the U.S., and or alternate but related pathways in that area. Also, as you notice on this slide, I've also put some of our class objectives that we have on our syllabus. And if you would like to see our syllabus, please send me an email and I will forward you a copy.
Well, thank you. See, it's like Christmas in September. Thank you so much. We do have another question here, and the question is, have you ever had a class where instead of having 2 instructors, you have 1?
I don't think we ever set it up that way initially. We always have had 2. And the reason we have 2 is just because we've had instructors that are stronger in workforce areas, and we've had instructors that were stronger in higher level English. What I found, one of the hardest things is trying to find the correct instructors for these classes because these students, they have high degrees. They have, PhDs, they have master's degrees from their countries, and they expect a very high level of education going in. And so a teacher that only, doesn't have a skill set in these areas, the students will leave and they won't stay. Okay, so sample curriculum. We have our class curriculum was developed by our instructors, and as mentioned earlier, it is modified as needed. Here's an example of one of the week, and I do have electronic copies of our lesson plans covering 8 weeks. Our teachers have also mentioned that they're very happy to share whatever you like and to, give whatever help that they can. I definitely encourage you to request this curriculum. It is very in-depth, it is nicely done, and they've spent a lot of time working together to all be on the same page for this. Okay, some other items that we cover in the class. One is translation versus evaluation. We translate our students' documents. We pay up to $300 for translation. And we do help students review what is important to have translated. For example, I had a student come in that wanted his high school diploma translated, but truthfully, he doesn't need his high school diploma translated because ACC will take his high school diploma in Spanish. And since he wants to go into the nursing program, he doesn't need that translated. We also have monthly networking meetings where we've had Indeed.com. They sent someone out to talk to our students, and we invite the current class, and we also invite previous classes in the hopes that they will just network together and work together to try to help them find jobs in their area. We also do employer informational interviews, college career services, and we work with the internship department through ACC and helping students find internships. The person that translates our diplomas, we chose by going through TEA's approved list. We also required the translator to be available to present to our ITP classes. That's very important. Our students really appreciate being able to ask questions of the company and to work closely with that company directly. We asked for quotes, and we followed TWC and ACC procurement rules.
If you can further explain a little bit the difference between translation and evaluation. I think you explained translation, but maybe the difference of what an evaluation does or is?
Okay, so as I mentioned, translation is just translating the document verbatim from their language of their home country to English. Evaluation is taking, for example, a math class, Korea, and looking to see if it is equivalent to the current math class that the college offers. Now, the reason we translate versus evaluate is because we don't know where they're going with that degree. So if they want to go to UT would not accept our evaluation. They would have to use their company, and their credits would have to be evaluated based on what the school requirement is and what they look at. Now, if a student comes over here in their degree and they're looking just to see if their degree is equivalent, then we could evaluate based on ACC's requirements, but it would be hard for us to evaluate, say, a bachelor's degree.
That's a very good explanation. Thank you. You mentioned that you provide the students with a list. Where do you get this list from again?
So that's on TEA's website, and honestly, I'm kind of a Google junkie. I just Google everything. So if you go in and you just Google TEA translations, I've always been able to find it that way.
So it is under the https://tea.texas.gov. Thank you, Olga, for that. So how do you determine how much you cover for evaluations? You say you pay up to $300.
So that's kind of funny. So we were audited recently, and so we can only give one provider up to $9,999 and 99 cents too. So according to all the rules, as mentioned, the procurement rules, that was the amount. And so then we just kind of figured how many students we serve, and then we divided it out. It comes up to roughly between $300 and $400 per student. And I am flexible. If a student comes in and they have, if they have a doctor's degree or doctorate and they have, $500 worth of stuff that needs to be translated, we're going to go through it and they're going to meet with our coordinator, Letty, and see what's most important, see if we can cut that cost down. But if we can't, we're going to step in and we'll pay for a higher, over the 300. But we really try to keep it at that 300 mark.
Okay, but it's good to note that you have that flexibility. So flexibility in the curriculum, or you adjust depending on the student, and then you also have the flexibility depending on their educational background. So that's very good to hear, and interesting for other programs to model.
We do offer the transition courses or the bridge classes. We offer basic computer classes, and we offer intro to medical, which kind of helps students determine if they want to go in the medical field like CNA, or if they want to do medical assistant. And we do the teacher assistant. Most of our ITP students find employment upon completion of the ITP program. However, we do have a few students that would benefit from a certification in the U.S. These students can participate in our ITP programs listed on the slide. Industry certifications, some of these follow the IBEST model, which is beneficial for our ESL students because it puts a teacher that has experience in with an industry teacher, so that we find a lot of success with the IBEST model. We also offer support for students wanting college credit courses, so we have several programs that are integrated into the college. For our paraeducator class, we pre-teach the curriculum, because the laws and educational terms were a lot for our students to learn in just a 3-day, all-day training that CE offered. We found that pre-teaching it helped our students quite a bit. A recent example is one of our students held a master's in business from her home country. She enrolled in ITP, and afterwards she enrolled in our IET for accounting. And she was recently hired by ACC as a staffing table employee as an accounting clerk.
Is this class integrated within your regular ESL class, or is this a totally separate class?
It is a separate class, and we offer, so that's why we have kind of two teachers, one focusing on the vocational and then one focusing on the really just a very high level ESL course that they will need in the workplace or in the business. So it is separate. It is under career pathways and not under our ESL department.
So are the lower level students who are identified as ESL for professional students not able to participate? Do you have other services available for lower level students?
So our lower level students, like our level 1 and our level 2 students, I do advise those students to get up to at least level 3. Now, they can take other classes. We do offer things like basic computers and intro to medical classes that are available for them to explore. They can also meet with advisors. They can talk with myself. They come in my office constantly for advice, but I do recommend that they wait until they're at least level 3, because then they'll have enough English so that they can participate in the class, and they're usually a little more successful at that level.
Wait, what? You have a paraeducators class?
Yes, so we do offer a paraeducator, and that's been very successful in the Austin area. It is an in-demand industry, and so there are lots of jobs, especially for individuals that speak another language, and so it's been very popular, and our students do get employed. So what we do, so I asked for the curriculum from Continuing Education. They were approved through TEA to provide the training. And so I asked for the full curriculum, and then I gave the full curriculum to my teacher, and she basically teaches that whole curriculum ahead of time before the class even is run through Continuing Ed. And so that way they've learned the vocabulary, they've explored all the laws and rules and regulations, they've learned about HIPAA and FERPA ahead of time, and so then they're passing. They pass the class then, but at first we just ran it like for a support model, and it didn't work out too well.
How many ITPs do you serve per year?
So it depends. Last year we had a little more than we have this year. This year we currently have, our goal is 139. Last year we didn't make our numbers, but last year instead of 139, I think, gosh, I can't remember. I think we were at 184 we were required to have. And then our EL Civics IET is 102 this year. So hopefully we'll make our numbers this year. We didn't quite make those last year though. Okay, so highlights that we have our own advisors, so that's a great thing. We do, they're advisors / career navigators, but these individuals provide targeted advising. They have more time to spend with our students, and because we have our own advisors, they get the same training as the college advisors receive, so that's a great benefit for our students. Students have access to all of the services offered through the college, such as our career services, our online programs, our job fairs, our internship, our free bus passes, departmental advising. We have programs that are integrated through the college, our level 1s and our OSAs, our occupational skills awards. They are, they're fully integrated into the college, and our college departments work with us pretty well. There's always things that can be changed. We have high retention and completion in our ITP program, and we have mentoring programs within adult education and internships. We've hired our students as ESL teachers, and we've hired our students as front desk and clerks, and so that's been wonderful. We help them get, most of them do get jobs upon completing the course. Okay, some challenges that we had was having time to research programs and state licensing requirements. This has required a lot of time on our coordinator's part. Finding the right teachers for the program was an issue to start with. This is a very difficult class to teach because these are students that have high-level degrees. Meeting the scheduling needs of the students wanting to attend several different trainings, childcare and transportation, funding for translating diplomas. These are all challenges that we faced in setting up this program.
Yeah, and I will just underscore the advising that many of you know Letty Ferreira, and she's really dove into this, and it's extremely challenging advising because of course they come here and they want to be recertified in their profession, and sometimes it can be night and day from their home country to here. I mean, usually it's more like dawn and day, but anyway, it's still very challenging and complex.
And so with researching the programs, Letty has done the majority of this. She has gone in and looked at the different licensing boards and to determine what steps are needed for each degree. For engineering, what does the individual need to do? She's looked at all the education opportunities for people. She still has, she's also we had a dentist recently, and I know she worked really hard in researching his options and what he could go and do. But I know the dentist, she probably spent at least a couple of months researching information on that dentist.
You do have to have somebody with a lot of drive to support students because it does boil down to research because it is a very dynamic area as well, because even if you served a student 3 to 6 months previously in the same profession, legislature could change, on certification and so forth. So it's a very research and a heavy area and very dynamic. And what I would suggest is that you do research on the institutions in your area and what students are most likely to connect to, and those international departments. Obviously, Houston has a lot of universities in the area, Dallas, the large metropolitan areas, but then your smaller rural areas are going to have that access too. Like, for instance, I believe Texas Tech is coming out of Junction, and, just different places. And we have our internationally trained professionals are doing, amazing things that we would not have even imagined in the beginning.
It takes a lot of, I was an advisor for adult education, and then hourly I taught for Michelle under this program, Internationally Trained Professionals, which I do feel gives me a little bit of a head start as far as for some of your advisors that you have. If they don't have that opportunity to teach it, it's a little bit harder to see the questions that these students are going to come to you with. But on average, 5 to 10 hours minimum per student that comes to see me. And I do give them homework, but then I also give myself homework with research. Because what I have found is that when I have, even after I give them the information and I'm like, okay, here's the thing, here's the person to call, or here's the person to go to, they'll go to that person, and there's just so much miscommunication. Simple things of vocabulary, like so many times they're asked, oh, where did you get your bachelor's from? Well, in Cuba, a bachelor's is high school. That can derail a whole entire conversation for them, and they'll come back with misinformation based on just a wrong vocabulary word used. So I tend to go with them as well, which that would add hours. And so I would recommend whoever's starting programs like these that they understand that whoever is advising or helping these students, it's going to be beyond like an hour or two, and it's probably going to require a lot of legwork on our part.
Yes, absolutely. It requires a coordinator, and we have great instructors that have written out the curriculum. They've had meetings. They try to align each class. They align their curriculum with each other, and they've put a lot of work into this.
Yeah, it takes a village, but the other thing I want to add is that you could also leverage the students. That's where the networking comes in as well. As you build your network, the students can also help the new students, and they seem pretty excited to come back and help.
I do have a question myself, and I was wondering, what do you exactly tell the students, or what do you do with the students who do want to go from training A to training B and then try out training C, and then they change their mind and go back to A? And how do you handle those student scenarios?
Well, one thing I've done is at registration, when they come and they talk to me and they're not really sure what it is they want to do, that's when we put them in the Internationally Trained Professionals class. And they work through that and they figure out, hey, this is what I really need to do. This is where I need to train so that I'm successful. And that population, now that system has worked out pretty well. I haven't had a lot of students that wanted to go into a bunch of different programs. I get one or two. And if they really, and after I've trained them and they're still wanting something else, we do refer them over to college prep at that point so that they can prepare. If they want to go in and do an associate's on their own, they're welcome to, but we try to steer them into just small certificates to add to their degrees, because they don't need a GED. They don't need, another associate's. They just need to focus on the education that they have in order to be employed.
Yeah, I think that's a main point of this program is to give them confidence in their degrees so that they realize that it's just owning that degree and knowing how it works in the U.S. And I think that's one of the most important points of this program.
Wonderful. Lots of great stuff.
Just the last point is that we do have copies of the syllabus, and we also have copies of the curriculum. If you are interested, you can send me an email and I will send you that back. It is very detailed curriculum. It even has links and information that you can pull from it to create your own class. Here you go. This is our contact information. So if you would like to send me that email, I will definitely have that sent to you.
Well, Catherine and Michelle, thank you so much for this great session. I think we all learned so much on what you instituted through trial and error, and then what was developed as a result of pulling together the data and working with your students, talking with your teachers, identifying what worked and what didn't work to have a successful program that you do now. What do you feel are your next steps? How are you planning on growing your program as we close out this session?
Well, I will say that one thing that we're learning is there are many internationally trained professionals that are underemployed and need ESL and so forth. And one of our community partners, we learned, we were starting that conversation about, and what program would you want at your sites? And they asked for ESL and internationally trained professionals because they were as foundation communities, and they said that the folks coming in to live in their apartments that they were about to build were going to be primarily Iraqis who had degrees from their home country. And so I think one is just getting the word out and connecting those services to the students.
And also, I'll add, on Friday, we had an employer panel for internationally trained professionals, and we did have a couple different employers come. One of them was Amazon, and although they start students out, or individuals, not students, they start everyone, seems like, in the warehouse, which is hard work. It's not easy work, and it definitely doesn't require a degree. But what was interesting, we found, though, is that after working there for 1 year, they actually upskill all of their employees, and they train them and they move them into IT positions, into HR positions, and into management positions. So just finding out little pieces about different companies and working with them to help students have more of a direct path into employment. That's where we really need to grow at this point, is to just have those employers on.
Well, thank you, ladies. Catherine and Michelle, you've been so helpful today. I think we all learned a lot. Thank you for taking the time out of your Monday to present this information and share on serving the internationally trained immigrant and ways of how we can improve at our program level. And I do know that we will be developing this further under the SIP project. So lots of great stuff still to come. Thank you once again for joining us today.